Yo, yo, it's ODB from OLP. This is issue 83 of Mini Truckin Magazine. There's a lot to talk about with this issue. It's a good one, and looking forward to jumping right into it. So it's November 98. Again, issue 83. This is Mike Bates of Franklin, Ohio. His Ford Ranger convertible, which now I believe Shannon Bullis owns. I did reach out to Shannon because the year of the truck is not stated, if I remember correctly, in the feature, so that's a blank in the database, and I need to get that updated. Jody Hall of the Drop Shop performed the suspension body drop, and shout out to Jody. He's a 2022 Mini Truck Hall of Fame inductee. You see, you can win a truckload of Jensen audio. You got the Mini Truckin logo in purple, or excuse me, in orange. I don't know what I'm thinking. 14 pages of do-it-yourself tech, so there's a lot of tech in it. This is a very cool feature. I really dig it. Assuming it's a rolling shot, they could have just shot it and made it look like a rolling shot, right? So we know that that did happen many times on magazines in this era. Courtney, this is his third issue as editor. Tom Lutz and Courtney technically shot it, so Tom... they may have, maybe Tom shot the rolling shot or, whatever. They both shot it. Now, technically, Tom was involved with 3 issues. He was involved with this, November 98, May 99, and then September 97. So, September 97, May 99, and this issue. Now, this is the 4th issue with a Ford on the cover. The wheels are stock, technically. So, not stock for Ranger, but stock Mustang wheels, I believe, which ties into the interior. The significance of that is there were only 3 issues with stock wheels on the cover. So, November 98, this one, March 2000, which was Sean Mahaney, rest in peace, his under construction issue with the Hilux. And then you had May 06, which was that international cover with the girls from Japan, I think Alexander shot, that had the stock Steelies on it. But enough of me slicing and dicing. Let's jump right in. We have the award-winning subwoofers for award-winning trucks, so high-performance car audio. And this was cool because they used a photo, I'm assuming, from Wes Allison from West Side that became crew cut. Really killer S10. I remember seeing in show coverage and whatnot, and then the old school pickup. So we have table of contents. Always like to dig in here with what we've got going on. So you see plenty of good features, including a Geo right here, boom, tracker. We've got lots of tech, which they hinted at on the cover. Events, we've got some good stuff from a couple of different photographers, including the 6th annual Cow Truck Jamboree. And then here it is. Who said Mini Verton was dead? Check out this hybrid Ranger owned by Matt Bates. It says this Mini was captured in motion by Tom I like to play in the dirt, Lutz. So I kind of mentioned it. It may have, it may have been the rolling shot he took, but technically, if you look once we get to it, Courtney's name is mentioned as well. So again, I've kind of mentioned how here they might give credit to the, maybe Tom took most of the photos, and then when they did the layout, maybe Courtney did some of the interior photos. Who knows, really? But rest in peace, Courtney Halowell. And again, Tom was tied to 3 covers. So the significant thing happens in this issue, November 98. Here in the editorial, Courtney basically talks about how sport compact cars play a huge role in our scene. It talks about people like Gendro, Kane Morris, rest in peace, McCormick, Tim Berendez we've had on before, and Cope as well. How these guys have owned these sport compact cars and how they're a big part of our scene. He specifically goes on to say Mini Truckin, who have supported Mini Truckin for so long. Mini Truckin is my life. And like you, I find it tough to share Mini Truck space with anything but a Mini. Tough, but not impossible. So that's a little bit of insight to what's to come on the next issue, which we'll talk about when we get to it, which will be issue 83. Again, rest in peace, Courtney Halowell. So some of the same ads, typically these ads aren't going to change very often. as long as they're paying, they're going in the mag. Here you have Joe Greeves shoots this killer Mazda. And I think this is one we recently saw, and I mentioned this might have been the one that I shared photos from Kirk from No Regrets that he had of. Can't remember if it was 2 topless Mazdas, but regardless, this one's got a lot of cool mods on it. It's got the tonneau, but it's got the side swing tailgate. It's got the little bit different roll pan with the lights down there. Real clean interior. I love looking back at these issues, you know, with a, you know, maybe if you're trying to build an old school mini truck or something of that era, these issues and hopefully even these flip throughs will provide a little bit of insight. This was cool. So you had the pass through, you know, so, you know, typically if you had that section kind of cut out with the accordion boot, that was going to be for your stereo stuff versus what we saw in the last issue with Ryan Fringlinghaus's Mazda, which was kind of a full walkthrough. Although it was called that, I don't think anybody could walk through it, but you could definitely crawl through. And then here you see some killer billets, and those were ultra billets, 15s to be exact. So pretty cool stuff. The other thing that's a little bit different, I'll say, on this one is you've got the louvered hood, which kind of is I think an underestimated thing on mini trucks. I think that's pretty awesome. Then the mirrors as well. Then you have up here part of the sunroof, the little valence deal, and you can slightly see in silver the mini truck and windshield banner, peachy clean. So pretty cool stuff. And this was Matt Perry of Warner Robins, Georgia. Here's paper cuts, so we can see. Again, I mix up some of these trucks. That's Van Tracks, I believe. Which we'll see, I think, again in this issue. If you haven't, check out OLP via your favorite podcast app. I know I say it all the time. Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, you name it. We're on it for the most part. Here you see Art Morrison. So it is worth Morrison noting the Art Morrison Enterprises. You know, they have been a leader for so long in these chassis. You know, oftentimes they were just like hot rod chassis. And now, you know, in the mini truck scene, the full-size scene, C10, you could pretty much call someone and have a chassis built. Now, don't know what the lead times are. I know my friend Tom Bennett, South Florida, he's building that F100. He waited a while for his GSI chassis for his F100. It was, I think, one of the first ones they did. He was on the list. Maybe 1 or 2 were made at the same time. But it's pretty cool nowadays that mini truckers, you know, we have the options as well to a certain extent. I think mostly the full-size trucks. But there are guys out there. Jimmy, you know, makes the one-off frames. Nothing really, you know, cookie cutter, so to speak. But certainly want to give a nod to Art Morrison because, you know, those guys have been doing it a long time. Here's kind of an older school CD player. And this is part of the, I think, the mini market. Ex-member files. So it's kind of ironic. We were talking about on the new episode of OLP, our our inaugural Spooktacular kind of ties into Halloween a little bit. But X-Files is brought up on that episode. And you can see a cross member like this. Some of these cross members, you know, these trucks would be laid out on bags and the cross member would be hanging down and that would be holding up the truck from going a little bit lower. So, you know, naturally, I'm sure most of you watching this, you know, it makes sense. You put a, you know, bolt a cross member in and boom, your truck's now a little bit lower, an inch or two. And that's maybe all you needed to be kind of laid out flat on that chassis. Shout out to Charles Armstrong, was texting him this week. Definitely appreciate his friendship. Here's Vanthrax, right? I get it mixed up. Vanthrax, I think that's it. But this was auto art by the kid when his time here, Oklahoma City. And he's an OG in our scene. He ended up acquiring a Lincoln, and we became friends kind of talking about it. And, you know, Lance and him are good friends. Subculture, good stuff. Here is probably one of my favorite things in this issue, other than the cover truck, is the 6th annual Cow Truck Jamboree. I always loved looking at this and Spring Splash. I thought to myself, you know, how epic these shows were. compared to, I guess, magazine-wise, compared to what we had on the East Coast, I always wanted to go to these shows. This was kind of before I really started traveling. You can see a couple of the ladies in bikinis. You got Shondell there. I mean, just a great photo there, just showing the depth of the paint that Eric Coleman laid down. Here you have West Side. And rest in peace, Sean Mahaney, although it was built under Master Image Customs, Rob Maggi and team. I remember when Sean, he had reached out to a couple people, including me, and we were talking about it, and he sent me a photo of this bar right here. And I know they still have that item, and Donna does. And I remember when he first sent it to me, he goes, you know what this would have been? And I kept looking at it. I was like, it's not clicking. And then after he told me, he goes, I think it was the battery hold down. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So Donna, she still has that. Here's Tim Parker's Isuzu. We talked about Street Boutique. That's what I call it. You can see that across the windshield banner. The badass famous Blazer, super clean. Again, this is one that I think easily could come out today and just kill it. And I think this was the stereo, if I remember correctly, in it. Looking at them putting those side by side, I would say so. CGS Motorsports, the famous S10 with the wheel stand deal in the back, I thought was pretty different. Here's the awesome Mitsu. The Chop Shop was involved. I think Hot Dog Designs, I think, did the paint. Long Bed, so we saw this recently. Again, you didn't see a lot of these. I always dug this truck, Art of Noise. Super clean, love the display setup with the carpet and whatnot, and just seeing a long bed laid out like that, earlier year S10 with the dash that I had in my dime. Pretty cool stuff. Here was Derek's Mazda. Again, rest in peace. I mentioned him recently. Really a killer truck. Love the lines on this thing. Super low. You can just see that there laid out in the grass. And then, boom, the bikini contest. So this was at Hidden Valley Park in Irvine area. Here was the Jensen giveaway. Here was as we're getting towards Christmas, they got the Christmas theme on the card that's here. I mentioned this truck recently. We just saw a little glimpse of it, but the flames are pretty epic on this one with the chop top. This might have been who won Best of Show. They do show it. I don't recall the name, but they do show on the upcoming page who won Best of Show, if I remember correctly. It was an 85 Toyota, Jesse Marque, I think, or Marquez. But I don't know if that was his. Anybody could maybe chime in. So here, another killer van. This is kind of cool. We got the barn doors on the bottom. I don't think that was on a lot of the vans, but definitely something a little bit different. And then that famous truck, full show truck. And you can see here how, with no topper and the walkthrough, you can see how the seats could kind of lay back more. Appreciate you guys rocking with us here. Really appreciate you guys watching these all the way through if you can. Here's the B-52 Bomber, I call it, the cover truck on Colorado Custom Wheels. Master Image Customs, we've tagged the owner in that one too, the old owner. I don't know if he still has it, this famous Yoda. And another Yoda. And then Genro. So you can kind of see here, I'll stop for a moment, Jesse Marquez, Corona, California, 85 Toyota. Does anyone remember which one that is? Some of the names I can't just rattle off the top of my head. Best engine, best engineered, best display from Diamond Bar. I passed that sign when I was out there in California. And then a bikini contest. So pretty cool they would do those things. Again, this was the third issue back with Courtney as the editor. And, they just put together a really good book, I think, as they called it in the industry for this month. Secure access. Here's a DEI mobile alarm. And you can still buy these alarms if you go on eBay. I don't know who owns, who the parent company is, but if you're looking to throw an alarm into your old school build, you can definitely buy them. I have noticed, though, like these older key fobs, those are kind of hard to find. I have one or two like this. I think three maybe. I had two black and a purple from my Amigo. which I had bought from my buddy John. That was my daily driver for a while. But they do have the kind of the newer school key fobs on them, but you can find alarms, and that's one thing. I have my old 700R that I want to install in my 90 Mazda. Which way to Yazoo? So Joe Greeves here, we can kind of see, if we look over here, was technically Mid-South Truckin Nationals. And again, I do put all of this detail in the description of the video. So, you know, not only have I built the database and went through and looked at and sliced and diced a lot of the numbers, I've also went through and cataloged every show, every truck name, if the year is listed in the feature. I'm going back. I don't know how long it's going to take me, but over the course of time, I'll go back. And I didn't catalog every person that shot every feature. I did for the cover and for some features, but not for every feature. So that's something that in the future I can kind of look at. Here's the famous Isuzu I mentioned recently. Always like this one. You can see there, back window looks like it's out. So it's got the accordion deal. Might have a full walkthrough. You guys will remember that one, I'm sure, from show coverage. The famous Toyota here. Wheels were super popular, it seemed like, back in the day. You got the Ranger. Again, those kind of blend together in my head. If that's maybe Lethal Injection, there were a couple of different ones. Someone did chime in. The one that I mentioned last time, saying they all kind of blend together, was, I think, Jody Hall's. I think that was correct. And again, Jody's getting into the Mini Truck Hall of Fame this year, getting his flowers, so to speak. Here is a killer Mazda, a little bit different grill. I dig it. Got the fender trim. It's pretty cool to see all this stuff kind of coming back full circle, but it's also cool to be able to go back through these issues and reminisce a little bit. There's the cover truck. Again, I can kind of put two and two together and say, okay, well, the show coverage, this was Midwest Truck and Car Nationals, and we see that Tom, Lutz, and Courtney shot it. So we can pretty much put two and two together and say this truck was shot at this event. And you can kind of, you can look sometimes at the gravel or the roads or the area and kind of say, okay, you know, where was it shot? And you can kind of do a little bit of investigating to come to a conclusion. Here is the, I want to say this was NC, the other Geo. Thing was insane. These things are still kind of popular, not as, you don't see them as much. And there's Scotty the Body. Big shout out to him. NC Florida. His wife has one. Here you've got the tandem axle, or dual. Yeah, tandem. What am I saying? I was thinking three. And people having a good time. Check out the Wacky Canadians. Good times. If you guys went to these shows, let me know what you think. There's the S10 and the KMC ad. Like no other. The Color of Money. Always thought this was a cool truck. You know, just real clean. Of course, being an S10 guy, I always dug this one. Carbon fiber dash kits were kind of all the rage then. I always liked how they did the bed treatment on this. When my truck was first bagged and then bodied by Matt Torgerson, he did my setup kind of similar, and it was pretty clean, where it just kind of went up like that. I drove that truck a lot in that era, so I thank Matt, and he's a supporter here on the channel, so thanks, Matt. Super clean, cool flex, and clean interior. So Pandemonium, again, I do believe Shannon Bullis owns this one. He's a Ranger fanatic, a Ranger take it to the extreme, and this is a truck that I would cruise all the time. Topless, of course, so convertible. I guess it had the top that popped on it. I can't remember if they had a photo in it here, but again, you can kind of see the landscape, you know, assuming that it was probably shot at that show that weekend. That's how we can kind of come to the conclusion. Mustang wheels, I believe, chrome plated. So again, I talked about there weren't many trucks on the cover with a stock wheel. Here you can see the Mustang dash. This is something that was done a couple of times, maybe the first here that I remember seeing. And, you know, Jody Hall laying down the body drop. Looks pretty clean. And maybe it didn't have, you know, looking here, maybe it didn't have a top that went on it. Matt Bates. can see here the shot. Does anybody know, Matt? Was this a rolling shot, or did they just make it look like one? Was he parked there? When we had Paul on talking about street trucks, when Courtney shot his Isuzu Hombre, he kind of reinforced how they were parked, and we could kind of tell that in some of the trucking issues. I remember looking at one, I said this before, with my buddy Paul, and we looked at it and we're like, you could read the tread on the tire, and it was a rolling shot, and we go, well, we knew it wasn't a rolling shot, but it looked good. Not taking away, I mean, that was the tricks of the trade at that time. 17 by 8.5 Mustang GT wheels. So pretty cool. I actually dig the idea of, you know, kind of tying this in with the interior and stuff. Kind of something cool. Here you can see inside the bed, again, full-blown show truck. Got the hydraulics. And you can see behind, you know, again, no expense spared. You know, everything was done on this truck from the top side at least. Some sculpture on the tweed. You got the mini trucking ad with the apparel. Here's the mini truck and Euro Spring Nationals invade the borough, which was Murfreesboro. So check this out. Here you've got the van Charles Armstrong painted. You also have the Mazda. You see a little bit of something that made it in the magazine. And a fun fact for those that didn't know, there was a magnetic item that was painted that they could put over said individual on the hood of that truck, depending on the show that they were at, not to offend anyone. That was something that Charles had shared with me. And I think some of the people from that region, you know, they've commented it before when I posted the Sphinx truck. It was featured in Truckin, and not sure why they never ran it in Mini Truckin. I don't think they did. It was one of those that just was cross-promoted over to Truckin magazine with Lance there, and I certainly read that feature over and over. And it was an awesome truck. Here is Sunkissed, so a very cool name for this bright orange tanning machine. Got the Mini Truckin tag on the back, possibly Photoshop, but I don't think that one was. And again, I actually like the interior on this one with the colors, the piping, the stitching. Not the stitching so much, but the piping, and you can kind of see that's a pretty cool photo to be in the back seat and be able to get the door panels in there, both, you know, with the doors closed and the seats laid back. It's probably a fun ride to cruise in. Chris Schmidt shot this one, so shout out to Chris. He's been on the pod cast. He's a good dude. We'll see him at Mini Nats next year in April, Maggie Valley, North Carolina. If you're a mini trucker, you need to be there. In my opinion, it's good times. Kind of going a little quicker through the tech articles you saw on the cover. They did hint at plenty of tech. Here is Summerfest 3. This was Memorial Day weekend in '98. And does anyone remember what van that became? Those centerline wheels were kind of on everything, it seems like. And those were my first wheels. I bought those 25 years ago, which I talked about on the Bada Bing episode. Special effects. So this was Al Taylor's Minnow. You can see that on the front license plate. The Relaxed Atmosphere logo on the back. Super clean. Got the kick panels. And super clean truck. Lance shot this one. Got some more black and white photos to kind of round it out. We can look over here as well and see some of the sister publications in color. We saw this ad before and we're like, oh wait, are we all in color now? No, not yet, because look, on the right side, we're still not all in color. But we're plugging away. Here are the famed Porsche alloy wheels. Those were on a lot of trucks over the years. I think we'll see probably more of those with the old school throwback stuff. Continuing just to continue to come back. This is pretty cool. An access panel at the bulkhead of the bed makes assessing the relocated gas tank and stuff. So a little bit different there. And then check out this sunroof. Crazy bed setup, something a little bit different. And you can kind of see that panel right there on how it looks when it's in. Here's sketch pad. Quick change, ballistic, This was a graphic tech article. You got West Coast Customs here. We've seen that ad before. This we have Jason McIntosh's 84 Nissan 720, makes it in construction zone. Very important section, as I've said before in the past, with Mini Truckin Magazine. Space Jam, this was by Lance Martz. This is a lower level truck. And super clean. Front tilt hood with Marvin the Martian, kind of ties into the name, Space Jam. 17-inch center lines, clean engine bay, a little bit of mods going on. Definitely worthy of a nice feature. The Caliente Lowrider ad, Ridin Around. Do apologize, I know some of these are getting a little bit longer, but it's just trying to get through the content. You know, some of these issues are really, really good, and they have a lot to talk about. Appreciate you guys watching all the way through. If you've made it, why don't you leave a comment? We'll do a rocket emoji. If you made it to the end, leave a comment with a rocket emoji, or just say made it to the end, whatever you want to do. I know not everyone uses emoji like I do. Here is the Vitek, and then boom, again, low glow with the bright ideas. That ad, again, they kind of flip-flop back and forth. I could imagine these aren't cheap to have at this time. Again, I have read circulation at this time could have been 50 to 55,000 issues a month. Don't know how true that is, but I have read that. This is a spare copy that I have of November 98. Again, this is a pretty iconic issue. Love the cover truck. Truck is still around. Shannon Bullis, I believe, owns it, as I've said. And appreciate you guys watching to the end. Stay on the rise, and we'll hit you hopefully with another couple this week. Biachia.